Hi, and thanks for joining us on Live with Squacky. I'm Val Kelly, voice actor, owner, president, CEO, and executive producer of Mid Atlantic Voiceover LLC. We're so excited about our guest today, Gabby Mystico. With over 20 years in the voiceover industry, Gabby is behind the mic every day recording for her clients. She's the business first voiceover coach. Gabby offers voiceover lessons in her Charlotte, North Carolina studio, as well as voiceover teleclasses, seminars, and workshops around the country. Featured in hundreds of commercials annually, she is the voice of dozens of radio and TV stations around the country. So, you've more than likely heard Gabby somewhere. We are honored to have you on the show today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
This is
So,
exciting.
we're so glad to have you on. Thank you so much. So let's start by having you tell us about how you got started in the industry.
Oh boy. Okay. So I got started at a very, very young age. I was this dorky little kid who was obsessed with radio and journalism and writing and voice, just voices, anything that was vocally different. You know, I was a little mimic as a child, and when I got into high school and basically my friends were starting to get part-time jobs and you know, doing things to make some money, my folks looked at me and said, "Hey, what do you want to do?" And I was like, "What do you mean, what do I want to do?" And they're like, what do you want to do?" And it opened up a conversation about radio and about broadcasting, and long and short is I applied for an internship, and instead of going and getting a paid job, I volunteered my time at a station and started working with them, and pretty much did everything except clean the toilets. They asked me to do. I mean, whatever I could do. Spent a lot of time bugging people about their jobs and trying to absorb everything that I could about that industry, and then got hired by them and started working at various radio stations, and then my broadcast career kind of took a bit of an arc. I was in and around New York City is where I grew up, and Long Island specifically. I started getting asked to do voiceover work, and I was a kid. I was like 19, 20. So somebody was going, "Hey, we'll pay you some extra money to do this thing." I was like, "Woo!" That sounds had no clue what I was doing, had no clue, knew nothing about voiceover, and slowly but surely really started to realize that the money-making potential and probably a long-term career option for me was going to be voiceover as opposed to radio. So then started to learn the ropes. I joke that initially I got my ass kicked up one side of Manhattan and back down the other, which, I had to pay my dues. And yeah. That was the start.
That's so cool. It's actually funny because I was born in Long Island and I lived there till I was 2, and then grew up in upstate New York. So I'm definitely a New Yorker too. So I can't really say I'm a Long Islander, really, because I only lived there till I was 2. But it's such a small world. I feel like everyone has their time in New York, right?
Exactly.
Cool. Well, that's a really great start, and that's so interesting. So on your website, you describe your coaching style as a brutally honest kick in the ass, a tough coach for a tough industry. Tell us a little bit about that and why that's your style.
Oh, man. Okay. So, it's always a good way to get myself in trouble here. When I got started, there were 2 things that I was exposed to very quickly. And it was kind of 2 different sides of the coin. I felt like in radio and in broadcasting, everyone, and part of this was that it was the New York market. We're known for being blunt. We're known for being very to the point, right? New Yorkers don't mince words. They don't waste time. They get right to it. Sometimes it doesn't always give us the best reputation. Well, that's sort of the environment that I grew up in broadcasting. And so criticism, help, training, it came in that form. It was very, very to the point, and it sometimes was hurtful. You had to be able to take things with a grain of salt. Well, when I started getting more and more involved in voiceover, one of the things I noticed was that a lot of coaches would almost baby, handhold, kind of mommy people through the process. And I was like, man, I don't don't want that. I don't want to waste time. I don't want you to tell me I'm great and pat me on the back for 20 minutes and then tell me everything I did wrong. Just
Right.
let's cut to it. Like I'm a big girl, I can take it. Like it's okay. And so when I started coaching for people, that became the style I adopted. I tell everyone, if you have a thin skin, if you're looking for someone to hold your hand, that is not me.
Right.
There are going to be days where I am, as a coach, I'm actually going to piss you off. But I promise you, it's for a reason, and it has a purpose, and it's going to have a better result later on down the line for you. So yeah, that's a lot of where that's from.
Yeah, that's cool. I think definitely there is a good way to balance it out too, you know what I mean? Where you can still have a positive approach to it, but give people what they need and that you're not sugarcoating things. And I do think you're right that there are a lot of coaches out there that try to do that. And, you know, for some people that works and for some people it doesn't. So it sounds like you have a really good, solid approach, you know?
Yeah, and I see it this way. When I'm paying somebody to coach me, I'm like, I don't want you to tell me what I'm doing right. That's not productive. That's not what I'm paying you for. Tell me what I'm doing wrong and tell me how to fix it.
Right, exactly. That's definitely what you want in a coach. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you've encountered in your voiceover career so far?
Oh, man. I would say probably the biggest, and early on, and it's gotten a lot better though, but early on it was really being a girl in a boys club. I do a lot of radio imaging and I do a lot of promo work, and even a lot of my commercial work, I tend to be up against a lot of male actors. And, that wasn't always the easiest. Definitely in promo and in imaging especially, I mean, it's sometimes really, really hard because guys are frequently the first choice for casting people and producers and the client. But it's gotten a lot better. There's a lot more opportunity that's opened up for women, I think, especially with new media and with the way broadcasting has changed. But every now and then I still feel a little twinge of that. I'm like, man, you know, I know I can hold my own with the guys. Come on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I do. I think it is. It has changed a lot and evolved a lot over the years, I think. But I do think there is always that competition with, you know, kind of competing against the men because it earlier on, I think it was more of a, you know, men would get all the roles, and now there's a lot more women in the industry maybe than there used to be. So there's just a lot more competition overall, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just totally evolved into something that's really, really competitive. So you have to always stay at the top of your game. So what are some goals that you have for your voiceover career in the next few months?
So, I think next few months for me, let's see. So I'm revamping some web content, and so I'm really focused on that. And it's kind of the funny thing of the marketing and the branding side of our industry. I'm usually so busy helping other people that my own kind of falls on the wayside. It becomes the back burner. So I'm really focused on putting that front and center right now, making some updates. Big thing, I think, for me, marketing-wise, I'm going to be doing a pretty large radio campaign coming up as we get closer to third quarter this year. And I think I'm also going to put a bit more attention this year into video games. I've done a few over the years, and I've really enjoyed them, and I have a ton of fun with those projects. I think I'd just like to start exploring more of it.
Yeah, definitely. Video games are super fun. I've heard lots of good things about people that do them on a regular basis, so that's really cool. Yeah. I think that, you know, marketing and branding, both, you know, like you said, the business side of voiceover is so important, and so many people are lacking in the knowledge that they need to kind of get their voiceover career even off the ground, or at least to maintain it or grow. What are some words of advice you could give in, you know, maybe some of your top marketing tips for people? Because I think that's something that a lot of us struggle with. Sometimes it's because we tend to be more creative people, and business is not our strong point. And so in that case, I know I have myself included, and a lot of friends are like, man, I'm doing all these auditions and I'm not booking as much as I want to, but I don't know what's going wrong. And I know that it probably has to do with the business side of it. So what are some things you would say that people can do to help improve that?
So I think the hard part for voice actors, and I know you've seen this, I mean, we're extroverted introverts. A lot of us have a hard time talking about ourselves or promoting ourselves. Some people are exceptional at it. And the majority, I think, of voice actors, though, are a little lost and unsure. How do I go about that? How does it not sound really self-serving? How do I do this in a way where it's not so obvious that I'm constantly ringing my own bell? And that's really the challenge right there, is you've got to find what works for you. You have to find a method that allows you to be loud and be vocal about your profession, about your skills, about the things that you do really well, without it seeming like you're clubbing people over the head. Social media, there's so many outlets now. There's so many great ways to do it. A lot of it is exploring those options. And some of it is just kind of taking that leap and saying, you know what, I'm going to try it. I'm going to do it a little bit. I'm going to see what happens. Because sometimes we're just hesitant to even try and start.
Yeah.
Brand wise, though, so much of voiceover success right now is about having a very specific thing that you do and doing it better than anyone else. And it could be an industry that you serve. It could be a specific performance. It could be a character. There's so many options. It's unreal. But whatever it is, yeah, you got to get really, really vocal about why it's your number one seller, why it's your best product, the same way every other company does. When they create a great product and it's selling like crazy, they're talking about it.
Yeah, definitely. That's really good advice. I think that it is difficult to promote yourself and to talk about yourself, because you don't want to come across as, being self-centered or whatever, but it's not that. It's just you're trying to get your brand and your name out there so that people can hear your voice and hear what you're good at and help their company or sell their product, So I think that everyone just has to sort of take little baby steps, maybe even in that direction, to try to get their names out there.
We're also a really sensitive bunch. Like I've noticed that over the years. We wear our heart on our sleeve, and we're actors, it goes with the territory, but we're afraid of ridicule. We're afraid of what someone else might think or say, or how they might react, or and we all go through that. It's so common. And I think the best piece of advice that I was ever given with regard to that, and I'll share it with everybody because I think it's so valuable. It's none of your business what anyone else thinks of you. And that it's such a simple phrase, but when you kind of remind yourself of that, it's not your business what anyone else thinks of you. That's their opinion. They're allowed to keep it, but it doesn't have to influence you. It doesn't have to affect you. It doesn't have to bother you. So right, wrong, or otherwise, whatever you do, when you put yourself out there, it's knowing that, yeah, somebody may disagree with it. Somebody may see something wrong with it, might criticize you for it. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's learning to, accept that, and just kind of, like you said before, take it with a grain of salt, because it's if you let everything that people say about you affect you, then you'll never be able to make it, especially in this industry, because it's
you'll never be able to get out of bed.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Who cares what anyone else thinks? Okay, it doesn't matter. So yeah. So we talked about this a little bit. We already know that the voiceover industry is competitive. What are some words of advice you could offer to those just trying to get their foot in the door? Simply get their foot in the door.
So I'm a big believer in preparedness, and I'm a big supporter of education. And I think that for most beginners, the hurdles that they face are actually sort of the opposite of what we were just talking about. They're putting themselves out there too much, and they're putting themselves out there too fast. And they haven't yet done enough research and enough work to make sure that they're competitive. And I know that's a hard thing to gauge sometimes, but you have to make sure that you're not making really obvious mistakes and things that are going to impact your reputation and your odds of getting work early on. So I say it's always taking a little step backward. It's making sure that you are a student of the industry first, that you've read, that you've researched, that you're actively participating, that you're making friends, that you're going to conferences, taking classes with at least one coach, if not many, just so you can avoid a lot of the really silly but tarnishing mistakes that a lot of people make.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that people ask me about in the industry are when, how am I going to know when I'm ready to do a demo, and what do I do if I don't have a demo, and things like that, and it's a very touchy subject almost, because you don't want to discourage anyone, but at the same time, you don't want to sugarcoat it. You don't want to say, oh yeah, you're definitely ready, because I remember early on people saying, okay, Val, you're headed in the right direction. You're getting training. You're doing all the right stuff, but I can't tell you when you're ready to make a demo. You'll just know when you're ready. You'll know that you've had enough training. You'll feel confident enough to know. And I do think that really is the case. I do think that having a really good coach to guide you and help you through that process is really important, because a coach really can't say to you, you're ready to do it. But maybe a coach can say to you, you're definitely not ready to do it. You know what I mean? So I think those are really important things that new people to the industry have to remember.
Absolutely. Coaches, mentors, friends, just allies in this business. And here's the other thing, and I always sort of remind people of this, and I know it's hard because demos are expensive. They're so important. We put so much stock into them. But I've always said this, and I will continue to say it. First demos, they're not great. Yeah. They're never going to be the end-all, be-all. Every single voice actor, I've never met someone who didn't think this way. If they're being honest, they will tell you that their very first demo was awful.
Oh,
awful, yeah. Terrible. Like, at the time when it was made, it was the best you could do. It was the best that you could present for that moment. But then 6 months goes by, a year goes by, you get better. And at some point you look back at that demo and go, oh God, this has to go. This is terrible. I don't want to, and that's what happens with demos. So even though, we're putting all this time and all this energy and all this effort into this, there has to be a moment where we go, okay, it's a disposable product and you're going to get better. And there's also things like trends and just like fashion to take into account. I mean, come on, who looks back at a picture of themselves from junior high school and goes, man, did I have it going on? Like, that shirt, wow, that hairstyle. We're always like, oh God, what was I thinking? That's what happens with demos too. So don't beat yourself up over that or think that it's that make or break. It really isn't, because it's the one of many you will have over the course of this career.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. Every single person I've ever met that made their first demo, they look back and they're like, at the time, you're like, man, this is the best thing I've ever heard, because you're so proud of the work that you put into it, right?
And you should be.
Yeah, and I remember having mine and being like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing, like, geez, Val, take it down a notch. But thinking back on it, gosh, it was awful, So I mean, you just have to learn from that and move forward, and they are expensive. And I think that is something that people are concerned with, is that demos are extremely expensive to have produced. And so if it's a cost issue, just save up for it, work for it. I mean, you don't have to rush it. When the timing is right, it'll be the right time on every level. So financially and, preparation wise, you'll be ready. And then and then it's worth it to do it and feel confident that you haven't, done it at the wrong time. So I think that's really important.
Yes, and I also think, though, it's kind of like the way we go about first major purchases. Very few of us went out and bought a brand new first car. We
Right.
didn't, it wasn't a luxury item. It was a Kia. It got us from A to B. It was a Toyota Camry. It was something stable and reliable. And we can sort of apply a little bit of that methodology to our demos too. I see a lot of newer folks who want to fly out to LA or to New York and spend $2, $3, $4, $5,000 on their first demo, and I'm like, that's a justification issue. Can you justify that at this point in your career? Probably not. So there are options that are going to cost less. They are possible, and then you work your way up to the more expensive product. You work your way up to the luxury demo, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
So tell us briefly about the conversational read and why it's so popular right now, because
Oh,
that's
geez.
in so many auditions that I get. Make sure it's conversational. And it's like, okay. And then, sometimes I nail it. And sometimes I'm like, I'll listen back and I'm like, that is not conversational, Val. That is like your crazy, broadcasting voice. I don't even know where that came from. It like happened when you walked through the door of your studio. So what is that and why is it so popular right now?
So, I mean, it's been popular for a very long time.
Yeah.
It's not even just like a right now thing.
Right.
Yes, you see it every single day. So the conversational read, I think, is born of a place where people are jaded, and we have a couple of things to contend with. We are in the ultimate information age, right? Everything is at our fingertips all the time. We're bombarded by messages all day, every day. We're a very overstimulated culture right now, and it's unlike anything that we've ever seen in the past. And between that and political climate and I think people just becoming savvier about saying, am I being sold, or does this person really have my best intentions in mind? And that has sort of shaped this over the years. Consumers don't want to be sold. Consumers want to be talked to. They want to develop a relationship in a sense. And in an odd way, in some instances, they don't want a relationship. They just want it to be very cut and dry. I need to get this thing. I need to buy it, and that's it, and move on and not think about it anymore. So the conversational delivery tends to make people a little bit more at ease and allows them to sit back and go, yeah, this sounds like me. This sounds like it fits my life, and I don't feel like I'm having someone else's agenda crammed down my throat.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that accounts for a lot of it. And then to the millennial audience, I mean, they're without a doubt the smartest, most technologically connected generation that we've ever seen. And so, yeah, you're not going to influence them as buyers the way it was possible in the past. Hype doesn't really do it. They're not going to be motivated by that.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Because it has been going on for a long time that you see it in scripts. It's not just a right now trend. I just meant like,
oh yeah,
I've seen more and more auditions with it all the time that they put that in the in the specs that it needs to be a conversational read.
And I think
like you're talking to your best friend. Yeah, it's probably going to stay, right? It's not going to go away.
And it's not just us either. It's not just voiceover. We're seeing it in the acting world. Actors are a little toned down right now compared to what we've seen in years past. I kind of look at the Twilight movies as sort of a strong indicator of where those things were headed, because everything was very understated. The acting was, in a sense, underacted.
Right.
And it really has set the tone for what is going on in other genres right now too.
Yeah, definitely. I remember someone saying in an animation kind of I'm not sure if it was an audition or if I was just talking to someone in the animation world, but they're saying things like the trend has been in the last couple of years for it to not be so over the top in certain shows,
Mhm.
in cartoons and stuff, where a lot of times they're like, take it to level 120, and then if we
Yep.
need you to bring it back down, we will have you do that. But just because the energy in cartoons is so high, and I think the last couple of times I've done an audition, they're like, just we want it crazy, but not over the top, So like it's like take your natural voice and then just add some like energy to it. So a lot of times like what I book is not necessarily too far from my natural voice just
Yeah.
because I do have a higher pitched voice. But sometimes I think what I tend to do is pitch it up because I automatically think that's what they want.
Right.
And they're like, don't pitch it up. Just be you, but just add energy to it. So yeah.
It's a controlled kind of crazy. And I do
Yeah.
think, and cartoons, God, the evolution of what's happening there. I mean, I look at H. John Benjamin and I go, okay, he's the poster child for the conversational performance that everybody wants right now.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's really funny because when you watch even a single episode of Archer, you realize that everyone on that show is just yelling all the time. Just copious amounts of yelling. But then also, like my whole household, like we're huge Rick and Morty fans. And you look at Rick and Morty and it's kind of the same thing. You go, man, it's a little duller. It's a little less animated than
Right.
it used to be. But the writing is compensating. The writing is making up for that. And I think that's a really important point. The more, I don't know, I guess wild the dialogue or the crazier the scenario, the actors have to understate it because otherwise who's going to believe it?
Right.
You got to find a balance there between
Yeah.
the writing and the script and what you're doing.
Definitely. I think there's been some amazing, phenomenal writers for some of those shows. Like just in the past, couple of years, things on Disney Channel with like Gravity Falls, and I mean that was definitely one of my favorites that has been out in the last few years. And just my kids even just we couldn't stop watching. It was like, what's going to happen in the next episode? And it was always so crazy and just brilliant writing. Just brilliant. So that's really exciting.
We're so far away from Hannah Montana and that whole genre, and it's amazing to think and go, that wasn't that long ago.
Right.
And yet kids today would never buy that. They would just go, oh my God, it's so, why are you doing that, Miley?
Just why?
Why? And I mean, even things like, I'm just Guardians of the Galaxy and the Lego movies, and it's evolving in ways that I think are fantastic, personally.
Oh, absolutely! I love it. I love all of that. I love the fact that the writers are so great and that the actors are getting even better, and that we're, as voice actors, we get the chance to audition for some of this stuff, and it's a lot of fun. It's definitely really great stuff. So tell us, do you have any upcoming workshops or trainings or conferences that you want to tell us about? Just a
few. So I host my ongoing the one that's the constant is I co-host with Ann Gamguza the VO Boss podcast, and so that is a weekly thing that people can tune into. In addition to that, I mean, let's see, I'm gonna be out in Irvine, actually, in California next month, June. Doing a workshop there. Classes and coaching and all of that is pretty much an ongoing everyday thing for me. People can just go to my website and see that. But
Cool.
the big one that's coming up is in the fall, and I'm excited because, any excuse for me to go back north, I'm like, yeah. So I will be at the Mid Atlantic Voiceover Conference.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
And you will be there, and I will be there. And,
Yes,
we will create mayhem, I'm sure.
of
And
course.
it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'll be doing two. So I guess I'll be doing one like group speaking event, and then also a breakout kind of workshop session there. So I'm looking forward to those. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're really excited about having you there and having the opportunity for people to learn from you and to meet you and everything. So, So tell us your website so everyone can check you out, and I'll put the link to it in the description of the video so that everyone has it.
Yep, it's just my name. It's GabrielleMystico.com. That's the easiest way. My primary voiceover website is voiceovervixen.com, and that's my handle on most socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, or I think almost all of them are at voiceovervixen.
Cool.
And then, just Google me. Good grief.
Yeah.
Google my name. All kinds of things will pop up. I have a YouTube channel called The Gift of Gab that's pretty popular, and you get to see me at my weirdest, I guess. My natural state, maybe. Yeah, it's a lot of fun though. I love doing it. Yeah.
Great. Well, it was such an honor to have you on today, and we're really looking forward to seeing you at MAVO 2018 in November. So if you haven't registered yet, it's on November 9 through 11 in Herndon, Virginia at the Westin Dulles Hotel, and the website is midatlanticvo.com. So check it out and register today, and you will get to meet Gabby and all kinds of other awesome people. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us.
Bye.